Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Dennis, you're on mute. Dennis, how are you?
Very good. Putting up with the snow with my new hip.
Yeah.
Still can't get out of the house without a cane now, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wet and heavy in Wakefield. I'm at work. There isn't an ounce of snow here. I'm out in Milford, so.
well. Carol will be dependent on people.
Yep. But I did get plowed this morning, so the DPW was right on top of it.
Yeah, they put the windrow on my driveway side, so I know they plowed good.
Good morning, guys.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Ian. Good morning.
Morning.
Sorry, I'm a little bit late. We had a little bit of a shotgun start early this morning.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring. I was looking for an email for canceling, but you didn't cancel, so thank you.
No, I look forward to talking to you guys. This is good stuff. So
Great. Stefan's supposed to join, so I don't know, just give it, I guess, one more minute. It's 8:04, so at least that's what I have.
yeah, no worries. So I threw together just a quick slide deck of some talking points.
Yep.
As far as Ann and I, we don't have to be super formal if you guys don't want to. Really just have a conversation about 23, what we think is going to happen to 24. And I highlighted a couple of, you'll see as we get into a couple of preliminary of the warrant articles that, we're trying to vet out over the next 2 weeks that we may be trying to advance. Nothing too crazy, I don't think.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. If you want to share, or do I need to let you share?
I should be set up to just do it. We'll give Stefan a couple of minutes though, if you want.
Yeah, we'll just wait, wait one more minute and then we'll get going.
Hey there, good morning.
Good morning.
So if everyone is good, I'll just start and I'll start talking. Ann will be the color commentary or provide whatever she wants to provide, and then if you want to interrupt. If not, I'll just keep going and we'll go from there. Unless, Mr. Chairman, you have any other options that you want to do?
No, just looking to get an update, just touch base on how you are on 23 and some of the early thoughts on 24. That was the sort of the essence of the trying to get together. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so what can you guys actually see? Do you see a little like town logo?
Yep, we got it. We got the slide, you got, yep.
All right, I'll just go through it in this setting. All right, so I guess starting with 23, as you probably could have told by driving through town, we were very, very busy this year with a lot of stuff going on. The construction season was good. We didn't really have any weather interruptions with rain and whatnot, which is both a blessing and a curse. But you know, we were able to pack a lot in, and we're sitting in pretty good shape. To date, as of warrant, I think we're on warrant 30, but certainly up to at least 26, the halfway point. Ann and I are both comfortable with where our spending is. Everything seems to be in line with the previous fiscals. I'm sure you notice if you look at something different to us, we tend to spend a little bit more over the summer because that's the biggest season for us. The split's usually like 60-40, 65-35, but the anticipation at this point in time, barring something completely unforeseen, we should finish the year out just fine. And we won't have any conversations with the FinCom or Kevin and Steve where we run into some trouble and need a little bit of help. I'm sure as you guys have been going through, you know, all the different subcommittee meetings and budget approvals, some of our challenges this year, no different than anybody else, right? Supply chain has been hit or miss all over the place. Inflation on just about everything has also been, you know, a little bit surprising. And then it seems like for us, different commodities, for whatever reason, it was one thing after another that the availability was just a complete nightmare with. Even things like, you know, as simple as, or what you would think is simple as like ordering granite curb. Nobody had it because there was either nobody to cut it, or, you know, the swell of all the ARPA money and stuff like that, people were gobbling it all up. That turned into the same situation with ductile pipe and auto parts and you name it. Basically anything you could look to try to get your hands on went through a period of time where you didn't know what the availability was going to be. Vehicle acquisitions probably were the worst related to that. So we had some trouble with some orders through Ford factory that were delayed and canceled. Luckily, you know, we're still on schedule to have some of the replacements that we had, but things like parts, especially relying on the metals and different stuff like China, really took a long time to kind of overcome. One of the other things on our level we saw too was whatever it is, the great exit or whatever they term that, and then the general apathy towards getting your hands dirty. We found that actually in the last, I think it's 2 years, that number was based on in. So in the last 2 years, believe it or not, we've had 10 seats in the laborers division change. So someone was either here working for us and left for another job or whatnot, and then we had to actually hire somebody new. So we've gotten pretty good at being interviewers, trying to get, you know, our information out. One of the interesting things is, I remember at least when I got on here, you know, you had to wait. There was usually a long list of people interested in coming to do this type of work, you know, for municipality and whatnot. And it seems like now finally we're getting affected by that line getting a little shorter and people shopping jobs. So the ease of, you know, interviewing, getting a successful candidate, making an offer, and then generally having that accepted the first time has actually kind of flipped. So it's something that, you know, we've been focusing on, trying to make sure that we're advertising in the right places to people that are interested in this type of work, and that, you know, we'll stay here for a while and make careers out of it, not just kind of be a fly by night. Everything with the last year or so hasn't all been bad. Some of the positives is one of the things we did, especially with the commodities and different things like that, is we took a look inward. And anywhere that we could get an efficiency, we kind of relied on ourselves for a lot of things. A good example is like line painting. That is somewhere where there's always a trouble spot in our highway budget. Believe it or not, this year, just because of, you know, timing, COVID, sickness, all that thing still kind of coming into play. We ended up taking a lot of what historically used to be subbed out and doing it in-house, and to the point this year where we're going to take on about 85% of that, with the exception of the long center lines. In doing that, that was a sore spot in our budget where we always overspent. I think we're actually going to come in under, hopefully for the first time in probably 6 or 7 years. So things like that. We took a hard look at all of our snow routes for snow plowing and salting, and tried to optimize it to basically take the time it took to go out and perform an event and pare that down, so that, you know, everywhere we move, we're moving with a purpose and we can move as efficient as we can. I think in doing that, it certainly helped last year with keeping us from having to come in and ask for additional funding. And certainly, hopefully, you know, if this year holds suit, we'll find that, you know, that has been reproduced and was an exercise worth doing. So those are just some of the 23 things. I hate to be kind of vague, but, you know, really, for the most part, I could summarize as just business as usual for us. Before I go on, I don't know if we want to elaborate on anything else here. I could just get into kind of what we're looking at for 24 too.
No, I'm good. I think that gives a good sense of where you are. You think you're coming in, your spending is usually 65-35. So you do most in the summer, or when you have decent weather is what you said.
Right.
Yeah,
and if, you know, I feel like I try to be as transparent as I can with all this. If for some reason I ever thought that the potential of a curveball was coming, just be rest assured, I'd be reaching out, because we don't have anything to hide here. You know, if we're in a jam, we obviously want to work with you guys, Steve and Kevin, the big picture. So, you know, luckily our managers have been able to avoid that, and that's been a fantastic seat to be in from my perspective. But, you know, should that ever change, the phone will ring or the email will come out very early. It won't be something that you'll catch late and, you know, won't be kept up to date with. If we see that, you know, the road ahead might be a little bit bumpy, for sure.
great. Anybody else on the subcommittee? I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Fine.
All right, so related to 24, the budget's actually almost pretty much done. We're just waiting on a couple of things that really aren't within our control. So some numbers for the enterprises, the MWRA assessments, and then some things that I get from HR related to the insurance costs for the year and whatnot. Kevin usually sends those to me the end of January, first week of February. The other thing that is kind of up in the air right now is the supervisors union. They are going through collective bargaining. I'm sure you've covered that, you know, before talking today. So I'm not 100% sure where that lands. I'm pretty sure it's going to fall in line with everything else that's, you know, predated this, but that's a little up in the air. So we're not 100% sure exactly what that's going to look like. And then the only other thing that I'm really waiting for, that I'm relying on somebody else for, is we use a fuel outlook from the Department of Energy. And it's just one of the ways that we kind of try to interpret where we think natural gas, electricity, and then diesel and gasoline is going to fall. I'll usually take that and then follow up with the folks at Gas and Light and try to figure out if they can give me a conservative range of what they think their rates are going to be. We'll take those numbers. And then, as you see in the budget books that you'll all get again, we'll basically pair that to a historical average of consumption and come up with a number that we need. What we're expecting and what we hope you to kind of expect with fiscal 24 is, again, really not too many frills, your bread and butter request. You know, essentially only the things that are absolutely needed to keep the level of service the same will we ask for. There's nothing in there that is expected to be anything out of the ordinary, or that we probably can't justify in a 2-minute conversation. A couple of places where we might, where we actually are forecasting to see some increases, though, you know, contractual, not purchase of services, but salaries, you know, with the different unions and things like that. Heating and electric, as I just talked about. One area that we have to pay attention to is police details. So with all the work that we have going on, and believe it or not, this is an area that during COVID we actually cut and we have not yet fully restored. So we probably will be trying to bump that up a little bit just so we can make sure we can cover our responsibility to them to help us with traffic management. Our MWA water assessment, obviously it was a very dry year. There wasn't much rain, so consumption is up. So we're expecting that to go up a little bit. And then some division training budget line items, we're gonna try to increase a little bit. I'll cover that towards the end. The good news is based on, what we can see preliminarily, it appears that our MWA sewer assessment might actually be going down a little bit. So we do have kind of a little bit of a silver lining in here. We actually expect a reduction.
Did that go
So-
down last year, Joe, too? One of them?
I believe it did. And what they did this year is they changed the meters that they use for all the different communities. And believe it or not, by having the situation that Wakefield's in, essentially by having a more accurate meter, our assessment went down. But coupled with that, we'll talk in a little bit, that inflow and infiltration work that we do to basically take out, the groundwater and things like that we shouldn't be paying to send to Deer Island. I'd like to think that also has contributed to that too. But 2 years in a row, hopefully we could keep that trend there going, because that's obviously the biggest expense on the enterprise side. So operationally, really that is kind of where we stand at this point. When I send the budget drafts out to you guys, I'll obviously highlight all that so you can see it and it sticks out. And then we can talk about anything we might have in there and the justification for that. But I would expect it to come in, the overall budget to come in on target, basically where Kevin and Steve usually give us the goal to see, shoot for 3, no more than 4. And then we'll have a conversation about what we're asking for and to see, do we need all this? Is there another workaround for it and whatnot? But at this point, we feel kind of comfortable with where we are. So I guess I'll take selfishly the opportunity for a minute. Is there anything on the subcommittee's mind, or maybe that you're hearing through the thing now that you think needs to be on our radar that we might not be aware of?
Joe, where do we stand with retirement?
What do you mean about people working here that are retiring and then moving over into the pension system?
Yeah, people that we currently have that for next year's budget, we gotta anticipate they're gonna be retiring.
I don't know that off the top of my head, Dennis. I could get you something on that. I think we ended up seeing a good amount of those guys that came in, the mid to late 80s. A lot of them, kind of all, the Donnie Schneiders of the world and Kevin Boyle, they all kind of went out, as the pandemic was going on. Left in that crew. I know there's a few. I don't think any of them are close enough based on children in college and all those wonderful expenses you get as you get older with kids. Off the top of my head, though, long story short, I'm not anticipating any that I can think of. Maybe one, but for the next time that we talk, I'll have a much better picture of that and what I see maybe in the 3-year window for that, so you can understand it.
Yeah, because I'm concerned about the supervisors level more than anything.
So I think I probably have one that you'll probably see in the next 2 years or so. And then maybe one more in the 3 to 5 year window. But I'll get a better feeling for that. My comfort level is higher, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, some warrant articles. These are some of the things that we basically pared down, we think might be coming up this year. Eminent domain is our annual all the time for $1. That doesn't change. Refuse and yard waste. We are bringing back up to talk about an expansion at Forest Glade Cemetery. There's been some conversation about the fuel island that serves the town and a salt shed. We also have an opportunity, the MWRA put a new round of funding in. Anybody that's been on the FinCom for a while will know that the 75 grant, 25% interest-free loan. So we have the opportunity to take advantage of that and avoid a straight borrowing. So we're going to be looking to do that in sewer. And then some CDL training and curriculum development that I'll get into in a minute as we go along. So I just plugged a couple of these out. I didn't get into eminent domain, and I really didn't get into the I&I borrowing. I figured we could talk about that next time, but I wanted to show you a couple of things related to the cemetery, the fuel islands, and then talk to you really quick about the CDL training and why that is actually going to pop up in here as a potential warrant article. I've had a casual conversation with Steve about these. We haven't really dialed into it yet. We're going to talk after we do, but this is something that, you know, at this point in time, we'd like to see go forward. We don't know if all of it will, but you know, just for transparency, these are some of the things that we're trying to vet out in a short period of time ahead of us. So actually, what I think is going to actually be a good thing, refuse, recycling, and yard waste. So that's been a topic that's been up in the air. A lot of unknown, a little bit kind of scary when you looked into it. I think the town of Wakefield is actually in a really good spot related to the contracts that we're under for collection of refuse and recycling. The one thing that we will have coming up in 2025 is our disposal contract will have to be renewed. Everything else we're locked in until 2027, and the best part of that is recycling collection is a lump sum. What we're finding is that our peers, as they go out to redo their recycling collections and put them out to bid, that they're bidding them at a per ton price, and people are, you know, for every ton of recycling, it's costing them $150, you know, to process it, or you know, maybe a little bit off of that based on some sharing of the commodity and whatnot. For us, we don't pay anything, so it costs what it costs to come pick it up, and that's what it is. It's nothing additional to it. I don't think that will follow suit the next time we're ready to do this. So I'm going to really try to enjoy the next couple of years and plan for, you know, what that might look like, so we can have that conversation well ahead of time. Just some quick informational nuggets. So our disposal cost went up. It's $98.30 a ton in year 4. And our preliminary estimate for trash is $2,390,000. So that is a projected increase over 22 at 4%, or just about $100,000. Really, the only driver in this is the collections contracts themselves, and then whatever happens with personal services, just because this budget pays for the yard waste operation and some other things like that. The bulk program that the council put in, this does right now include a $100,000 offset through that. Ann and I are both kind of cautiously optimistic that that number will actually bump up a little bit. But what we're waiting to do is get a little bit closer to, you know, decision-making time to figure out, you know, we only have 1 year of data on this, so it's not like we can go back and look at it longitudinally and kind of figure out what our tendencies are. But it seems like, you know, between that and then tonnage being down a little bit, that we can increase that offset. And I would expect that, you know, this 4% that you see here is probably going to be a conservative estimate. I think this is going to come in at 3% for the year. And we'll know that for the next time that we talk. But this is something that even just a couple of years ago we didn't know what was going to happen. So I feel like it's been pretty stable, and it seems to be that way, at least for the next couple of years, to give us some time to anticipate kind of the next change. So, before I move on, does anybody have anything on refuse or anything like that? I know this one sometimes is always a topic of interest.
We're not having any problems with Republic taking over like Reading had, are we?
We have not experienced that yet. You know, there have been growing pains and things like that. Sometimes, you know, a new Republic driver might be going through the route a little bit slower and stuff like that, but we haven't experienced anything, you know, like what you're seeing on the news with relation to like abandonment and things like that. And it's pretty good about staying on top of that all day, every day. So if that even gets to, you know, be a small, tiny little fire, that's gonna get addressed immediately. But so far so good, and we hope it continues.
All right, did you say there was no ancillary cost, or you don't apportion anybody or anything in this budget to help manage it? What did you say early on about that, Joe? That it is what you said, you know, the cost is the cost, like staff and stuff like that? Maybe I misunderstood what you said.
Oh, so like the way refuse works is there's a price to have the company come in, drive the truck, pick the refuse up. Then there's also a tonnage price that we pay when it goes to the incinerator in Haverhill.
Yep.
Recycling, it's just one cost, it's fixed. So whether
Yep.
we generate 2,000 tons, which we, you know, typically do, give or take, or we generate 5,000 tons, our recycling cost is our cost.
Yeah.
You know, so the more
But
we
you don't apportion a portion of Ann's time against this budget, for example, or a staff as from a support perspective or ancillary?
No. So not on the administrative side. The only ones that we do will be related to like yard waste and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we have the pit open, their overtime for that will go to this.
Yep.
And things like that, the hazardous waste day. But from an administrative standpoint, we haven't historically done anything like that. It's really just been the labor end.
Yep. All right, and just a side note, I had to dispose of a mattress, so I was gonna call one of you two, but like a big boy, I went on the website and it was very straightforward. So they're picking it up next week. So just FYI, it was pretty clear, and I'll put it out next week. So once a month they come and pick it up. So
Right. That's so that's a DEP initiative.
right, yeah, I knew that.
It puts us in a little bit of a strange place because we're literally in between a rock and a hard place. They're regulating that the mattress cannot now, unless it's, you know, completely disgusting, go to a landfill or an incinerator.
Right.
And then, you know, hindsight being 2020, I almost wish that they focused a little bit on putting some more infrastructure in place and kind of battle testing that for a while. It kind of, you know, became the wild, wild west a little bit, and everybody was feeling things out. We think, you know, we have that service. So far it's been going good, but that could be something that you know, still might change. We don't know. We're kind of, we have to be reactionary because that's the hand that we've been dealt. But it's good to hear that that's been smooth, at least so far in your experience.
Yeah, just a state of federal mandate. That's all.
Yeah, I love those.
Joe, I had one question about recycling.
Sure.
I believe the town has had maybe a couple of these throughout the past year, but storage containers, or I'm sorry, shipping containers that they fill up with corrugated cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
Does that program offset some of the recycling collection costs that the town pays for?
That's a great question. I actually have it in my notes to talk about. It does, but the number that you see from it, because of the capacity that we have to run that, is not very impressive. We could never get into the, you know, cardboard recycling business. Really, what drives the whole thing is, you know, the cost benefit analysis of weekly recycling. We're thinking of ways like, how can we get a convenience in here for the Amazon box that shows up, that sits in, you know, your breezeway or something like that for 2 weeks. That's, you know, this albatross that you got to walk around. So we negotiated that in. Every ton we get, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, Ann, but I think we get about $40 a ton.
Yeah,
we get
$40
about-
a ton.
$40 a ton. So there's a small offset. Really what it covers is the very, very minuscule amount of time it actually takes. But you know, does what we collect off that put a dent in this budget to offset it, similar to like the bulk stickers they mentioned? No, it's not even close. I will say, Stefan, one of the things that we're looking at doing is so the cardboard commodity has been very good. There's a market for that. They want corrugated cardboard because that could be broken down time after time before it becomes essentially worthless. The other place that we've seen the commodity remain pretty decent is in scrap metals. So we are trying to work out some of the details to maybe offer that too. So if you have pots, pans, metal shelf, something like that in the house that you know would maybe normally have to purchase a bulk sticker for to get rid of, you know, we think we have the opportunity to accept that in a way down there and then recycle it for a dividend. So we can get into that a little bit more as we talk. I don't have all the answers to that quite yet, but we're certainly open to anything that would offset some of these for sure.
Thank you.
Anytime. Okay, so Forest Glade Cemetery. So working with Dennis over the last couple of years, we've realized that, you know, one of the things I think in my transition over here, and I don't know if Rick just didn't have the time to get into it, is really planning out what's our future here, right? Because it's odd to talk about, but it's one of those things that, you know, this amenity, this service to the residents is a need, and something that we want to make sure that we are maximizing to the most efficient way that we can. So we started looking into, you know, what we had down there, what we had available, what are our records, and we actually decided to put a master plan together of the property. So to brainstorm a whole bunch of ideas, uses, different things, kind of review what some of our peers are doing in this space, and to make sure that our needs are met well into the future. On the piece of paper that I have here is just a quick capture of section R and S, which is the back section behind the crucifix. Those are actually the two newest expansions that we did, and we haven't sold anything in that yet. But if you look to the left a little bit, that section Q is relatively new. And we're starting to get into that area, so we want to make sure that before we start selling graves and things like that in these areas, that we're prepared for what might have to come next. So again, we're working through a master plan here. One of the things we realized is, should there be a need sometime in the future to have to do a further expansion into the woods there, it's wet, it borders the highway, and there are significant design challenges to potentially putting a working cemetery in that space. So all of that being said, it means it's going to be expensive. So is there anything that we can do to kind of slow down the rate, I guess you could say, of grave purchases, or come up with an alternative that satisfies some needs, you know, and still doesn't put us in a place where we're, you know, at a detriment. So one of the things that we had been talking about with, you know, COVID and different things like that, it actually got pulled from funding, and last year I came very close in capital, and it ended up not going through at the very end. What was to create a cremation garden. And essentially what this is an alternative, an attractive alternative to someone that may not want, you know, a full casket vault, full depth burial interment, but, you know, does choose to be cremated, but would like something, you know, as kind of a memorial. So to the left here, it's an AutoCAD plan, so I apologize, it's a little hard to see, but if you were to drive into the cemetery, just past the garage where the staff down there works, there's a grass plot right after that. So this would essentially be either paved and street print cobble walkway delineated in gray. And then all those squares inside of that would basically be, grass plots, small plots with markers on them, similar to the one here. And then we have some options for some niches and things like that to kind of line this. And one of the things we found for very little footprint, we can actually stuff a heck of a lot of niches into this. So we feel like we could get a minimum of 1,400 here, and then depending on the appetite and the design that is final for any walls, or things like that, there's the opportunity to actually fit quite a bit more. So why are we even entertaining this? For someone that's kind of flipping the switch and, is indecisive or doesn't know, what their pre-need planning might be, or, what their desires are, this is something that at least gives them an alternative. The goal would be to offer something, that's a little bit more cost effective than your full, typical funeral burial, and provide, a nice alternative. One of the misconceptions I think that happens with the cemetery is, yes, they're there for, whoever resides there, but they're really there for the living, right? They're there for the people that come in, and have their peace and quiet and time with, whatever they choose to do. So this is something we've been looking to do for a while. One of the things I think that, we probably didn't express in our argument for funding the last time that we're definitely going to highlight is that our intent would be, once we get the budgetary estimates, we would work with the council to set a price on this so that the construction could actually set to be neutral costs. And what we would do is we would advise that we offer pre-sale to Wakefield residents to offset the construction costs before we pay into the enterprise fund, with the cemetery fund, I should say. So, out of those 1,400 graves, I just did a quick back of the napkin. So, again, shooting an arrow into a dark room, if we were to say that construction for this was to be 400,000, and we sold roughly half at 600 per spot, that's all it would take to basically recoup those costs. That is something that we would certainly be interested in trying to do if this advanced, so that we pay the town back first, and then everything else could benefit after the fact. But we figured if we were able to do, we don't allow pre-sale for anything that happens down there. But this, and obviously asking for the funding to do it, we feel is a good opportunity to relax that rule, to make sure that we can recoup whatever funding we're asked for and pay that equity back, so that it has the shortest term effect as possible, on the grand scheme of things within town. So our engineers here are working on the full cost analysis for this. This is something that I'll probably have all the details for the next time we talk. I'm basically just waiting for that estimate on what they think it's going to be to construct this. And then when we speak the next time, I'll have a better idea of what we think we're going to be asking or recommending that, some of the rates for these type of things should be. And then we'll show how that will actually offset, whatever we're asking for to construct this. So I know that was fully loaded, but does anybody have anything on this one?
Joe, quick question. Are there any federal laws, state statutes, town bylaws, or anything in place that require us to perform cemetery expansions or consider cremation projects like this or afterlife projects at all?
I don't think the only thing I'm aware of is that a town either needs to provide a place for interment, or we have to have a relationship and agreement for our residents to have that space. So if we didn't have Forest Glade Cemetery, we would have to have some sort of working relationship with either Lakeside or Puritan Lawns, a big one in Peabody, something like that. But off the top of my head, I would default to Dennis on that. I don't think that we're regulated to have this space, but we have to have at least an alternative to that. I don't know if that completely answers the question that you had.
Dennis, do you have any background on this?
Oh,
Oh, I'm
I didn't
sorry.
know which Dennis you were talking about. Dennis Page.
I'm sorry. I meant Dennis Fazio, our Parks Forestry.
Oh, okay. I'm
My
sorry.
apologies.
And no, I don't have any background in that. Okay. I'm concerned whether we could use any perpetual care money to advance this project.
So I did ask that question, before. I will obviously always ask that again. I think at the time when I was explaining it, there was a little bit of concern because the interest off perpetual care offsets some of the budget. So what that might do, but that is something that I'll certainly bring up. If we can do it that road, that's the way we want to go. That's an answer beyond me, though. I'd really have to know what, Steve, Kevin, and probably John McCarthy, what their comfort level is with that. And then if we get their blessing, great. That's really a them conversation and a decision that they would ultimately give us, the guidance that we need to follow. But in a perfect world, Dennis, that's exactly where it would come from.
Okay.
So moving along, our salt shed and fuel island. So currently, our salt shed sits at the yard waste site in the High Street. It sits down below. And the age of that is, I believe, 1970 is the actual date of construction. So 52 years old. The current existing shed now is post and beam, so it's simple wood. It's screwed together with plywood on the outside of it and a tin roof. It's about as simple construction can be. Some of the issues that we're having going on with that now, and pain points, the grading in that site was never really done to a point to defer any potential issues in the future. What I'm saying is the way that the drainage runs off of the site, it actually has to pass by the salt shed and end up at the low spot and into the woods and into the river. What ends up happening is the ground is obviously naturally saturated because it's so low, and the wood tends to wick up the water. It's caused it to rot. It's something that we've been chasing for probably years and years. The other issue that we have going on with it is, believe it or not, it's actually too short for dump trucks and trailers to dump. So generally, we have a staff member there anytime we're taking material deliveries. But if we get a bad winter, that's basically 24/7. If they tell us in Chelsea at the salt ships that they can't come in until overnight, not guarantee it, we'll leave it open for them so they can get in and do what they have to do. Some drivers are excellent, some drivers aren't so excellent. Every once in a while, you'll find that one of them might clip one of the roof trusses and things like that. But over 50 years of stuff like that happening, it's really starting to get to the point where we can't sister any of the joists together or band-aid it anymore. The other thing that we found is the beams and the studs that are actually the frame of this thing, the skeletal piece to it. They're basically losing their consistency and strength. There's something that a beam that used to hold up the door frame is now a beam with another beam screwed into each side of it to kind of put a cast on it to hold it in place, but it's just slowly starting to fade away and age out. And then, believe it or not, the current existing salt shed is, believe it or not, built into the wetland buffer. So we're actually in an area where it's not supposed to be. Our fuel island, so that is located at 35 North Ave, so that's our barn. That was put in 1994 and it had a 30-year warranty. So the reason that we're going to bring that up with this is obviously because we're getting close to the warranty being out. This island is 8,000 gallons of gasoline, 6,000 gallons of diesel. This provides the fueling for every single municipal vehicle that runs in town. So Public Works, Light Department, fire, police, schools, you name it, they all get fed off of this. The tanks currently are, they're above ground tanks, but they are fed underground through piping into the centrally located island, which in a picture I'll show you in a minute. If you're not familiar with it, the fuel island is essentially smack dab in the middle of our parking lot, right in front of our garage doors. So it's kind of this big speed bump in the middle of everything going on there. Some of the pain points we have with this is our garage doors, depending on if the ladder truck's there, we may not be able to get in and out of our garage until they're done, or other large vehicles. When the fire department comes in and out, so depending.
Joe, you just froze. I don't know if you're aware of that.
On if we're working on normal 7 to 3 day, if the fire department has to fill up and there's a lot, am I still frozen?
Not anymore, sorry.
Okay, so what did we get to? I apologize.
No, you were fine. I think you're talking about the island, you're talking about the underground feed, the above ground tanks, and then 30-year. So we got most of it, I guess, Joe. It's just like 3 seconds.
Perfect. So the only other thing I was saying is it based on where it's placed, it gets a little wonky sometimes getting in. You know, the fire department stuff, if we're taking a trailer load delivery or something, and there's fueling going on, it can get kind of like a jigsaw puzzle to kind of maneuver everything around, especially when it's within the normal operating hours of what we have going on. So it's just a couple of examples. I just wanted to throw it in there for context. So these are the walls. You can actually see, or maybe you can't see, and I can provide you a better one, but believe it or not, all the plywood's starting to warp. And then to the right-hand side in this, the plywood actually, the nails just won't hold into the studs, or beams, the wood beams, I should say, you know, that hold the frame up. So we're constantly down there, you know, with, you know, we'll patch it together with a 2-inch screw for it to fall apart again, and we need to put a 4-inch screw into it, type of deal. So if successful asking, you know, to fund the replacement of these, we'd actually, believe it or not, seek to put the fuel island down at Nahat Street and get it off of the 35 North Ave site. A couple of the reasons behind that, outside of what I talked about in the previous slide. Trip generation, right? It's no secret. Our facility is located next to the Galvin. It gets very busy, depending on what happens with the Mike's Gym parking lot, and you know, any potential development there. That level of congestion can be, it can be deceiving in the future. You know, for us, it makes sense for this to be something that we take kind of off of that site. We can have it in a place that it's easier operationally for us, but it avoids some of the crowding that happens. And it frees up some of the turning for us on our property. The other thing it does is, as we're working through the feasibility process, if the fuel island isn't smack dab in the middle of the current parcel that we own, it gives us a couple of other different options to maximize that for the future. And then also in the middle of this, so if you take a look, this small square here, it's just a high level concept of where the fuel island might be able to go at Nahat Street. And then this would be obviously a new salt shed. Both of these would be outside of the wetland buffer. In stormwater improvements and different things, you know, would be added to that, so that, you know, the water that used to run off from this area by the existing shed and into the wetlands, you know, now is treated. So there'll be an environmental benefit to that too down there.
And Joe, obviously that'd be above ground tanks or what?
So the fuel island would be completely above ground. It would be something, so now that it goes from an above ground tank to an underground pipe to a old school gas station pedestal. These new ones, and I will have a better picture for you the next time we talk, should this advance further. But these new ones are all above ground. Everything is set up so that should there be an issue.
The tanks are above ground, I mean, right? Double lined above ground tanks.
Double lined above ground tanks. The fuel island itself with the dispensers are actually bolted into the tank. And there would be, believe it or not, a canopy over the top of it. to help with some of the runoff. Like this would be the preferred option. Basically, once you put the pad down and do a little bit of the paving work that you'd have to do, should you ever have an issue, 30 years down the road again when we're out of warranty, you literally pick the tank up and move it, and put another one down in its spot. So it would be set up, better environmentally, but then operationally much easier should you ever have to do anything to it in the future.
I'd be worried about security.
So that would be part of it. We would have to, and again, as it moves a little bit, I'll have more of those details for you. I just wanted to try to keep it at like 10,000 feet, but what we would have to do is, as you get into the gate, we'd have to change the locking mechanism on the gate. There's a couple different ways we could do it. We could either do like an RFID tag, so you buzz yourself in, you buzz yourself out. But there are other options too, where you could set it up where the gate would, believe it or not, function off of our radio frequencies. So if I pulled up there in one of our vehicles and keyed my microphone for 3 seconds, the gate would open. It would give me a 45-second window. I could go in, and then the gate would close behind me. Unless it was during the day, and then it would be open for business. We do have internet down there. It would be cameraed, and it would be as secure as we're regulated for it to be, but also as secure as we feel comfortable, which would probably be pretty. I'm going to say over the top. But that's not the best way to describe it, but it would be pretty robust. I'll put it that way, Dennis.
I'm just concerned it's a dead area that people could just go and hide, that's all.
Yeah, and as far as taking the fuel out, obviously there's, you must key in an ID or something like that. You've got something in place already, or you would?
We do. So each vehicle has its own unique
Card.
ID tag, RFID. So
Yeah.
you can only get that. You have to buzz yourself in, and every employee has a PIN number. So Jim, your PIN number is 1, 2, 3, 4. We see it all, kind of like the way the doors at town hall are now. So we know everybody that's in, what they take, and that's how we build the fuel out to the different departments. So that would all stay the same. It's certainly a long way from the old attendant that was sitting out there pumping it for you with the handwritten slips.
Yeah, and you said earlier, so everybody, including the light department?
Yes. Yep. So they fuel up at our spot. Basically anybody with a vehicle. We are working on getting some redundancy there. So let's say the power gets knocked out, or God forbid there's an issue with the building, and we now can't use this fuel. In Wakefield, there's no diesel fuel in any of the gas stations, with the exception of the one that I believe was approved at the Dalbear School. So we would have to go out of town to pick that up, or rely on somebody to bring us a temporary thing. So these stations are actually the significant to us. As much as this is a DPW ask, it's really going to turn into a need for the whole town. And then the picture that I have up here. So what you see here is essentially our 2 tanks. Behind these tanks is a blast wall. It's basically, I believe it's 8-inch concrete. It was put there because of the proximity to the old school. So from these pumps, it goes underground. There's a fuel island that you can see in this picture to the right here. These are the pedestals, so you have side-by-side fueling. As I mentioned, if the ladder truck's parked here, getting in and out of this garage space sometimes can be tricky. Or if we're taking a trailer delivery, they usually parked up in this area here. So as you can imagine, it sometimes can be an interesting navigation through there when it gets busy.
I just look at bringing it more to the front if you can, where supposedly the MLD uses the space.
We can do that for sure.
That makes it less hidden so that people driving by can see a reach through there.
So before we talk the next time, I'll vet that out. I'll show you something like that. I'll try to send it out to you before, but I'll give you like a basically the way that this sketch here in the middle was done is really just see what we could place here to avoid any issues with the wetlands and things like that. But we could take this and essentially slide it, which would be south. So you'd be heading, in this direction here somewhere. But I could definitely get you that, Dennis, for sure.
I'm concerned about the gas island being up front, not way at the end of our lot.
Mhm.
I just assume try to get the gas closer to Nahan Street if we're gonna put it there.
Sure. Okay, and really, the last one, like I said, with the exception of the I&I, which we'll cover in depth the next time we talk. So driver training and credentialing. So the federal law changed now. When someone like myself got a position here, you got a driver's permit to drive a commercial motor vehicle. You had a sponsor. You basically drove around with them for a while, learned how to operate the vehicle, and then you took the road test with a state trooper. You either passed or you had to go back and do it again. Now you are required to go to a federally approved driver training program. So in order to do that, there's one or two things you can do. You can send someone to one of the schools that are around, or you can actually submit your own curriculum and apply to become your own driver training program. We would like to do both. One of the problems that we have with the driver training schools is the timing for that, to send somebody through that program, should they not have their license when they get hired. It's 5 days a week for a minimum of 8 weeks for full days. If not, you can go half days for 5 days a week for 16 weeks. So the time investment there is significant. What we'd like to do is procure a training facility to come in and actually teach that to us in-house, where we could separate the time so that, we're not taking the employees that we need to send through this, sending them out of town for 8 weeks. We want to keep them in town and kind of spread it out. That way we can work, on getting our certifications, a couple hours here, a couple hours here, like 2 half days a week, and space it out so that, we don't completely abandon our day-to-day duty that we have. One of the pain points that I probably should have mentioned earlier when I was talking about employees is the other tough thing we're finding is that candidates with commercial driver's licenses are few and far between. Generally, if they do have them, we've found in our experience, they've been some of the ones that have been, accepting of offers, negotiating, but kind of really playing off all the different things, because there's now a premium on getting somebody that can fulfill the service. So currently, right now, we have 10 employees that either need their license or want to upgrade. And what they want to upgrade to is a Class A, which is essentially gives them the right to tow a trailer over a certain weight, so they can move some of our heavier equipment. So what we're going to ask for is it's $50,000 essentially to put us through this. And what we would gain with this is this course is essentially going to become train the trainer. So as we send these people through this, they will have the tools that they need for us to submit curriculum in where we can now train in-house. The only way that I understand it to become a trainer is you have to have gone through the training program. So even someone like myself, I don't believe I'm eligible to do that right now. So we'd like to accomplish two things with that. Get everybody credentialed so they can start driving, and also get us in the point where we have plenty of people that can train anybody new that comes on board, and we can handle that all internally. An interesting piece with this sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, sorry. One of the things we knew when this was coming on board, we recognized that this change was about to happen. So during the last CBA, this was actually negotiated into a laborer's contract. So one of the things we wanted to try to avoid was someone coming here, getting a license and leaving and bailing on us. So in very similar language to what is in, I believe, both the police and the fire contracts, this is something that should an employee in the labor force, not have the CDL and wish us to sponsor them and send them through that and send them to school, let's say. We would actually take, when they complete their program, we would take it and deduct whatever it costs us in equal payments per pay period for 5 years. So whatever the net cost, we divide it by 26 and then over 60 months, and then that would be payroll deducted. So they have a little bit into this, so don't we? At the end of 5 years, I believe, which is the exact same language as the police department, if you're still employed here, you want to make it long term, you can petition to get that given back to you. We also added in the component too, where if we had to send somebody to this and they left before they completed 5 years of employment with us, then we would withhold any balances owed to us in contractual accrual payouts. So someone works for 3 years, a couple of days of vacation, that's owed to them by contract. Now we have it in writing that says you don't get that because you haven't made us full on our commitment to you with your driver's license. So this is something I don't know 100%. Obviously, it's going to benefit us for the long run and in the short term. I think it's a one-time thing. Once we get set up and we have everything in place to handle it in-house, that's the only way we'll do it. It'll actually never incur any cost to us. Again, I don't know what the direction that Steve might tell me with this, if he might have an appetite for this with his counsel through something else. I'm not 100% sure, but the way we look at it is, to be cliche, they say every Marine's a rifleman, everybody here is a truck driver. So, we want to make sure that we're at least maintaining that minimum, so we have that interoperability. And with that, that's basically all the talking points I have. So if anybody has any questions or wants to go through anything, feel free.
Would we be able to train the MLD and other town agency schools?
What you cut out just a little bit. What was the first part of that?
Would we be able to do training MLD in the school department?
To be trained from them, or would we be able to train them, you mean?
CDL.
So if we become a approved training program, if someone from the school department wanted a CDL, we could certainly do that. 100%.
So we
No.
we could get some reimbursement for that from MLD in the school department if they needed training.
Sure. Yeah, there's an hours component to it that you have to hit for driving and education. Really, one of the big things is, and I tried to get this in with the truck driving schools, and I basically kept told no, and then they finally showed me the literature on it. But I was trying to avoid the classroom part. I said, if I have employees that have permits and they just need the road time, with a instructor, can I fast track this and reduce the tuition costs? And I said, no, you have to have the classroom time too. So this is something, certainly, if the light department had a few people and we had some of our own, why wouldn't we do that? We'd be all about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 40 hours times 8 weeks, Joe, is that what you said?
I'll give you the exact, no,
But it's a substantial amount of hours.
it's huge. Yeah, I don't know the exact, the total of it, but yeah, the time commitment for it is massive.
Yeah, I mean, I just struggle with bringing that in-house and needing 2 full-time equivalents to handle it or whatever. Need to see more meat on the bone with this one, in my opinion, as to how it's all going to work, but I understand the point.
Really what we would try to do, and I'll give you something better that explains that to that point. We try to make it, on the job. So like any of our OSHA components or things like that, it doesn't matter to us if we take, 45 minutes a day, an hour a day, that's fine. We're doing it here. If that happens from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, great. If we know that every other Friday, we're going to do a half a day to do that, awesome. The driving component, the best part for us is, if I need my license and you're the instructor, Jim, we can get road time by going to Wilmington to the asphalt plant. and bringing it back to the crew. You know, we're not in the parking lot at the airport just doing maneuvers there. We can actually take that and be productive while we're, you know, getting some of that time in.
So a lot of the training is more on the job, so to speak.
Hands-on, it could be, yes.
Hands-on.
You just need the credentialed person in the passenger seat to be able to do that.
Question about the deduction of the training cost over the 5-year period.
Mhm.
Is this already negotiated into the labor union contract, or is this something that that will be trying to negotiate it into the next contract
No, this is in it already.
in it already? Okay.
Yep. So I think the cost for the class is roughly $5,000. So it ends up coming out, I think, believe it or not, just a tad under $50 a pay period that they end up getting deducted. And then, you know, should they retain and stay, there's the option, just like the police academy, for that to be refunded. Should they leave, we need to be made whole before they're entitled to any other benefits that might have normally been paid out.
So say, for instance, they leave 2.5 years in, they still owe 50% of that training back to the
So
town.
if they left at that time, say they had 2 weeks of unused vacation time, under normal circumstances, that there's a legal requirement for that to be paid to them, they forfeit that. So it's really, the language is to try to create a catch-all that would, you know, hopefully deter, you know, that in and out, but then also provide us with a little bit of a safety net so that we can be made as whole as possible, you know, and not have that liability hanging out there.
We can't go against any retirement benefits though, those are segregated.
What do you mean? What do you mean about the retirement benefit?
Retirement benefits that they had approved, we can't touch them legally, I don't believe. We only
No,
we only can do vacation leave and sick leave.
correct. Yep,
If they use it all up, they're ahead of the game.
potentially.
I'm all set. I do need to drop off shortly. Any other questions, folks?
No, I'm all set.
So just
Joe, will you be talking about any of the I guess the capital that we discussed last year, like the water tower, for instance?
yeah, for the next time we talk, we actually we just had a resident meeting with the abutters. That's going to the ZBA. That is on schedule to be a summer fall project for us, but I can update you on that for sure. Show you some of the renderings and different things and the scope that we've nailed down on the project. Yeah, we can talk about that all day if you want.
All right. Yeah, I know it's outside of this this budget, but
No, that's okay.
okay.
And then, Mr. Chair, so I'll give you a heads up when the copies of everything will be coming out to you all. We'll deliver those, and then maybe you and I touch base sometime next week to see how things are going, and we can try to plug something in for February, maybe, to talk again.
Sure.
I don't think we're going on St. Patrick's Day, but they love to put us right in that window. So
Yep, there you go. Anybody else questions?
I'll sit here.
All right, Joe, this is great. Would you mind just sending it to me? I'm gonna write up some meeting minutes, and obviously I'll just reference some of the items on this.
absolutely, if anybody has any questions, don't be shy. We'll get you whatever you need.
Thank you, Joe.
All right.
Thank you all for your time. Appreciate you
Have a
joining.
good one.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.